Saida,
Hi, Jane.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Okay. I have a somewhat of a cold, but otherwise I'm fine.
Okay, good. We can start right at 6:30.
Absolutely. I'm going to take the first one and David's going to take 854 fifth,
Okay.
which is just a riveting. I don't know whether you could ever had a chance to look at the presentation materials, but it's so beautiful. It's just unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
Now I have to find, okay. I'm just Saida, I don't think Will sent out a notice for tonight. I had to go to the regular community board calendar to get the agenda.
Did send one out. Maybe it looks a little bit different because it's the
Oh,
one that's like this week. So it wasn't just for
oh,
landmarks.
oh dear. Okay. Um, thanks. I didn't open it, but that just kind of arrived.
Yeah, I did. You're correct.
It's really nice when he sends out an email that says tonight on,
Yeah, it is.
just for people like me. So it's now, what time is it? It's 6:24 now. Okay. Christina Davis, great. Okay, so I have 6:25 now, so it's 5 more minutes.
Yes, okay. Good evening, everyone. A few notes for you, particularly if this is your first meeting with us. After each presentation, co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can ask to be recognized by raising your virtual hand, and you can do that by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. It's important not to raise your physical hands or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you among the participants. If you are on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute. Once you're recognized by a co-chair, I'll unmute you and you may be prompted to confirm unmuting on your device. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you can access the raise hand feature by clicking the participants button on the menu at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. The chat function is available for technical support only, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. You can send me a chat if you're having any trouble and I can help walk you through any issues you may be having. Jane?
Thank you, Saida. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the October meeting of the Landmarks Committee of Community Board 8. We have 2 applications to be presented to us tonight. Remember that we are here for context and appropriateness within the historic district, or in the case of 854 Fifth Avenue, an individual landmark. We will hear from the applicant, then we'll hear from the public, then we will go to the individual committee members. We will formulate a resolution and present that to our full board meeting, which is this Wednesday night on Roosevelt Island. With that, we're going to begin. I will take the first application and David Halpern, co-chair of the committee, will take the second application. So the first is 163 East 70th Street, Upper East Side Historic District. Application is for a rooftop addition not visible from any public thoroughfare. Is the applicant here?
Yes. Jason, confirm unmuting.
I've got down Arpad Baksa.
Yes, I don't see our pod here.
Correct.
Uh,
Arpad's not here. I'm here. Hello, everybody. I'm
So
Jason.
you'll be
Holmes.
present. Okay, so you can start. Do you want to do a screen share?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me get to the right page here. One second. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So what we have here for our project is a rooftop addition on this townhouse. It's at 163 East 70th Street. It's in the middle of the block. Here in this slide, you can see here's your block diagram at the top left. You can see inside the circle, lot 27 is our lot. It's on the north side of the street. Right directly below that, the map of the Upper East Side Historic District, you can see it in the circle, the little black rectangle there. On the top left of the slide, you have the Sanborn map. And on the bottom right, you have two views from the 1940s tax lot photos. Yeah, basically the building looks like this today. It's pretty well preserved. And I'll go to the next slide. Here you can see some photos of it. Our rooftop addition is going to replace the it's not visible from anywhere. And if you look at on this slide, there's the Google Maps aerial view. It's the building that's shaded in pink. And the part that we're concerned with is what you see as this gridded piece in the middle of the property. That is an existing glass greenhouse, glass and metal greenhouse. It was erected in the 1970s when they did a renovation. And basically our proposal here with the community is to replace the greenhouse portion of that rooftop addition that's on there. Here's the street elevation, so you can see for scale. The view on the top is showing you the existing streetscape elevation view. We're pretty much in the middle of the block, and you can see the kind of wedge shape roof outline of the existing greenhouse on top of the building there. And then in the bottom drawing of this slide, you can see the proposed penthouse to replace that greenhouse. You can see from this slide that we're lower in height from our neighbor to the east, and we're slightly taller than the neighbor to the west, but we're still not visible from anywhere. Okay, here are some floor plans. I'll zoom in on these so you can see a little bit better. Here we have on the left and right here, it's existing and proposed. The street is toward the bottom of the slide and the rear yard is toward the top.
Perhaps you could give us the dimensions and how far the setback is?
Sure. So the existing setback is 28 feet 9 inches. And the proposed setback is 25 feet 6. So we're bringing it forward about 3 feet 3 inches closer to the front. And we're also, whoops, go back. Go back to that slide, just. Okay, so we're bringing it forward 3 feet 3 closer to the front. We're still we're out of the visibility range, even still with bringing it forward. Part of the reason why we want to bring it forward, we're increasing the footprint slightly from the existing greenhouse so that we can construct the new enclosure around what's already there without compromising it. Due to weather, we don't want to open up the top of the building to the weather and things like that while they're building the new enclosure. So this way they could leave what's there, build all the new stuff around it, and then once it's weather tight, they can remove the greenhouse from the inside.
What's the increase in height?
The increase in height is 3 feet.
The increase in height is 3 feet.
Correct. Part of that is to change the slope. I'll show you in a moment. To the next slide. So if you look at the two diagrams on the right here with the pink shading, the one on the top is the existing volume that we want to remove, and then on the bottom you can see how the existing volume fits within the proposed volume. We want to change the slope of the roof. Right now it slopes down towards the east, right? So we don't want to keep that slope, because when we build the new one, it would slope all the water and things directly into the neighbor's facade. So instead of doing that, which is not good for anybody, we will slope it towards the front of the building, so everything drains onto our own roof and how it should for best weather performance. So you can see in the section diagrams on the left how the existing is on the top and the proposed is on the bottom. You can see the slope towards the front of the building. And you can see here the visibility line and the dash line from the street level.
It might be useful to know the dimensions of the existing greenhouse versus
sure.
the new penthouse.
Sure, I have that here. The existing greenhouse footprint is 20 feet and 2 inches wide by 24 feet 1 inch deep. It's 486 square feet. The proposed penthouse footprint is 24 feet 9 inches wide and 27 feet 4 inches deep, with 677 square feet footprint.
677 square feet?
Correct.
Thank you.
The existing greenhouse highest point is 12 feet 11 inches, and the proposed highest point is 15 feet 11 inches, 3 feet taller.
Thank you.
Sure. Here you can see the existing and proposed elevations of the entire building. The existing is on the left. You can see let's zoom in a little bit for you. You can see that the penthouse is, sorry, the greenhouse that we wish to remove is dashed in here, sloping down towards the right of the page. And then the drawing on the right is the proposed. The materials I can talk about a little bit now, since you can see the picture here. We're going to have glass panels with metal frames for the windows and doors, and standing seam metal panels for the solid facade. The metal panels will be dark in color to match the rest of the windows in the building and the rest of the metalwork on the building. These are examples of the materials here on the right, along with the rear elevations of the building. On these drawings here, you can see that there's like an existing extension of the greenhouse back here. That's clad already in standing seam, these same panels. So we're just going to keep that material going for the rest of the greenhouse replacement.
Is that your presentation?
Sorry?
Is that your presentation?
You mean, am I finished or the?
Yes, I guess
Oh.
that's it.
I mean, I have other pictures. You can see the rooftop mock-up. We're actually doing a lot of other work on the building that's already approved with staff level at Landmarks. So yeah, we're replacing the windows on the front of the building. We're replacing the entrance doors and the garage door that's on there. Just to give you a little bit of more background of the restorative work that we're already undertaking on this building. Yeah. So in these pictures here, just to finish up here, you can see the greenhouse here. This one in the center is the greenhouse viewed from the front of the building, and the orange netting is the height of the proposed penthouse mock-up. And with that, if you have any other questions, happy to answer.
Well, we're going to hear from the public and then we'll hear from the committee members.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public here, Saida?
If you're a member of the public and you'd like to speak to this application, you can raise your virtual hand by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. I don't see any, Jane.
Okay, I guess we can go to the committee in alphabetical order. Thank you,
Okay.
Saida.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I think from the basic point of view, neither the existing nor the proposed greenhouse is appropriate. However, since you can't see it and the building looks the same as it did, and I think they've maintained it very well, I think, to me, it's approvable because it's invisible. I mean, I'm not insulting the greenhouse, but it does, it doesn't belong up there if you could see it, but you can't. So I will approve it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Next, we have Gail.
I agree with Elizabeth. I'm not particularly fond of the existing greenhouse nor the proposed change for the penthouse. But in as much as it can't be viewed, then I don't have as much of an issue with it. I do have a question regarding the rear view. How is that changing in the back? Buildings that are behind. Is it anything different really that they're going to see? Does it look-
Yeah, you wouldn't. It's really hard to see this stuff. If here, let me go back to the plan to orient you first of all.
Thank you.
So our building rear facade, it only has a 10-foot rear yard in the back.
Okay, I was going to ask, what the size of the yard was. Okay.
Yeah, the yard is only 10 feet. And so the part that we're talking about today, replacing the greenhouse, has a setback from that rear facade of, it's two numbers, I will add them up for you, 24 feet 4 and 13 feet 3. So that's 37 feet 7 inches setback from the rear facade. And it's also mostly obscured by there's an existing bulkhead that's there in front of it already. Yeah, so if I go back to the elevation view. So here's the existing and proposed elevation views. On the left, you see the existing standing seam metal panel bulkhead that's there with the greenhouses behind that. And then on the right, you see what we're proposing to replace the greenhouse kind of around the bulkhead, but it's so far set back. I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to see this like from any of the rear yards that are back there inside the donut.
And you already are using the metal panels anyway. It's just an extension of that.
Correct.
As well, as I understand it. All right.
That's-
Thank you very, very much. I don't have any other questions.
Joe?
Thank you. At the beginning of your presentation, you spoke about sight lines. You drew that sight line to show us that it was not visible. What was the perspective there? Where were you viewing it from?
These are viewed from the street wall of the buildings across the street.
And what happens when you get to the avenues?
I have pictures of that in here. I mean that you wouldn't see, you can't see anything anywhere close to this these rooftop.
So you looked at it from the avenues?
Yeah, I have pictures in my files. If you want, I could dig one up to show you, but it's going to be less informative than than these pictures here on the top
Okay,
right.
but you're saying that you did do sight lines and you can't see it. You're making that statement.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Now you're using aluminum panels. Are they reflective?
No, they're dark. They're painted a dark color, like a bronze color.
So they're painted aluminum.
Yes. It's
It's
this color here in the lower right of this
Okay.
slide.
And have you had any comments from your neighbors, both behind you and adjacent to you? Have you reached out to them? Do they know this is underway and what the proposal is?
They do. We're on very good terms with all of the neighbors around. We have access agreements with them for the other restorative work that we've been doing. We've been in construction with this building for probably like at least 6 months. So they're very aware of that this is already a construction site and that they were notified of the public hearing, and you know, they know all the plans here. They know what we're trying to do. Yes.
And so this does not interfere with anybody's windows or chimneys or
No,
anything like that. Okay, thank you very much.
sure.
Thank you. Next, we have Alita.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. My concern, since you're saying it's not visible, is that the light is visible. All you have on the top in the front, facing the front, are panels of glass. And to me, that creates a beacon, and that is not appropriate. In the back, you have those, are they clear story windows? There's something that will also emanate light, but not from which light will emanate, but not to the same extent as in the front. And that really concerns me. Even though the structure may not be visible, the light, I feel, will be.
Okay.
That's all.
Thanks, Alita.
Thank
Next, we
you.
have Anthony.
Thank you, Saida. I agree, actually. I agree with what Alita said. Although I suspect that the existing skylight, greenhouse rather, the greenhouse structure is also a source of, let's say, an unwanted glow to the neighbors. So I'm not sure that this is worse than what you've got already. I think it's ingenious and a good idea to build the new thing and then take the old thing out from underneath it. And that really is the extent of my comments, since it's not visible. Thank you.
Alita has another comment. Should I go back or continue?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Alita.
Thank you. I had thought in advance about what Anthony's point was, and that there's a greenhouse, but it feels like a greenhouse, people are not up there at night turning on the lights, and a penthouse will be very much used at night. And that's why I'm raising this in particular, because of course a greenhouse is made of glass, but it feels like the glass is primarily for the benefit of the plants, not the residents. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to say. But Anthony's probably disagreeing. So
Yes, I'm going to
I know
disagree.
it's a discussion, and that's
I'm
it.
sorry.
Thank you so
I
much, Jeannie.
apologize. I apologize, Jane. But I think it's called a greenhouse, but the purpose, I suspect, will be the same in the future as it was in the past. I think it's called a greenhouse just because it has glass walls. I would venture a guess that there are it's actually it's called a solarium right now on the drawing. So my suspicion is that it will serve the same purpose it serves the same purpose now as it will in the future as a lounge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Marco.
Thank you. I think everything has been said. Pretty much, I think the only thing that probably, if I have any concern, is something that it will be in the future, which is basically the excessive glass on the front, which won't be in compliance with the new City of Yes. I think I will support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John.
I, like so many others, I'd be inclined to approve it since there's nothing visible from the street.
Thank you. And Abraham.
I think I agree with everything that's been said. I think, you know, it's consistent with what's already there, and based on the photos, I don't think it'll be an added site issue. So I'd support.
Thank you. Christina.
I think everything has been said and I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I'm supporting it. I would only say that in all deference to Alita, I don't think that the light is going to be a major problem for any of the neighbors, considering where the penthouse is and the amount of light that might be emanating from it. So I understand her concern, but I don't have the same concern, and I think I think the project is okay.
Jane?
Well, I'm going to support the application. It seems to me that it's a move to approve. Does anyone want to formulate a resolution? No one?
Gail has her hand raised. Go ahead, Gail.
I move to approve the application as presented.
Is there a
Seconded by
second?
Abraham?
Great. So I think we can go to a vote.
Okay, 1 second while I unmute everyone. Elizabeth? Oh, Elizabeth? Elizabeth, confirm unmuting.
Myself, yes.
Thank you. Gail?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes, based on what David said.
Sarah's not here. Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Great, unanimously approved. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
you.
Saida.
So just to follow up with the logistics here, does this mean that I do not have to attend the full board hearing?
I don't think you have to. It was a unanimous resolution and approval. So
Okay.
thank you.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Ready for the next? I guess
Yes, we're ready.
Okay. The next application is 854 Fifth Avenue, individual landmark, Upper East Side Historic District, Peter Penoyer Architects, a Beaux-Arts style residence designed by Warren and Wetmore and constructed in 1904-5. Application for alterations, including the replacement of the front door and modifications to the existing areaway, the construction of bulkheads, and infill of an existing interior court. And I saw the architect in the multiple images, so I know he's here.
Yes, I'm here. Should I start?
Oh,
And-
actually, Peter, shall I give the?
Yeah,
introduction?
yes, Valerie starts,
No,
yes.
Peter, I noticed your
Yeah.
team was there, at least your
Yeah.
attorney,
No.
so however
As
you
the
want
whole-
to begin is fine.
Yeah, if I could just start and that way I can sort of explain the two applications. Good evening. My name is Valerie Campbell. I'm a partner with Kramer Levin, and we're land use counsel to the owner of 854 Fifth Avenue, which is an individual landmark located on Fifth Avenue between 66th and 67th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. I'm joined tonight by Peter Penoyer, Jennifer Garakaris, Tom LaMontagne from Peter Penoyer Architects, and from Sean Rubenheimer and Alice Lane, the owners reps from Grafton Limited in London. And actually, if they look a little tired, it's because they're actually in London right now. So we're presenting two applications to the committee tonight. The first is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for certain alterations to the building, including alterations to the areaway and front door, the extension of stair and elevator bulkheads, and the infill of an existing interior court to create a new room. These alterations are part of a comprehensive restoration and repair program for the landmark, which is seriously deteriorated after many years of neglect and a devastating fire in 2018. The second application is a request to the Landmarks Preservation Commission to issue a report to the City Planning Commission pursuant to Section 74-711 of the zoning resolution. This special permit is available to landmarks to waive certain use and bulk provisions in exchange for the owner's commitment to restore and maintain the landmark in a sound first-class condition in perpetuity. In this case, the proposed adaptive reuse of the building as a private members club requires a special permit because a members club is now considered to be a use group 6 commercial use, and the building is located in a residential district. The members club will also include 3 guest rooms, which are classified as a use group 5 because the intent is to allow for transient occupancy, which is for occupancy for less than 30 days. We also need the Section 74-711 special permit to waive rear yard regulations with respect to an extension of the bulkhead and for a waiver of the minimum 20-foot distance to a lot line required for legal windows and for the inner court.
Valerie, you got muted. I'm not sure how, but give me 1 second.
If you can go back to inner court.
All right, so.
Okay, Valerie, I'm not sure what's happening on your end, but it happened again. I'm not pressing anything. So. You see it? There you go.
There, is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you.
All right. It's important to note that the private members club is not a nightclub or a high occupancy use, and the members club will not be an event space for wedding or bar mitzvahs. There are many private members clubs in the Upper East Side Historic District in the vicinity of 854 Fifth, such as the Metropolitan Club, the Lotus Club, and the Leash Club. This project will ultimately be reviewed by Community Board 8 3 times. First for the landmarks application, the second time for the special permit application that is subject to ULURP, and the third time for the liquor license. In terms of our outreach, we have notified and spoken with many residents and the managing agents of our neighbors at 2 East 67th Street and at 1 East 66th Street about the project. We will work with them and other neighbors to address any concerns about construction and the operation of the club. We have also given tours to the Landmarks Conservancy, to the Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts, as well as to some members of this committee. We think this is a very exciting project and an ideal candidate for a Section 74-711 special permit. Peter and Jennifer will describe the building's history, the existing conditions, and the proposed work. We're happy to answer any questions about the special permit at the end of their presentation, and Sean and Alice are also available to answer any questions about the proposed private members club. Thank you.
Who's ever coming next?
Peter is coming next.
Here we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is an exciting project for us. Its location is right, along between 66th and 67th on Fifth Avenue, as Valerie said. And it's one of the first individual mansions, houses designated by landmarks in the mid-60s, so really quite early on. It's one of the last great surviving mansions on the avenue. The picture on the left is important because the building has been scaffolded for years since a catastrophic fire, actually before the fire in 2018. And the scaffolding, although better scaffolding, has gone back up. So this is the image that shows you the degree of the deterioration of the facade. The cornice is the most obvious problem, where the fire literally exploded stones off the cornice. So there's a large amount of missing material that will have to be recarved. And you can also see the decrepit state of the areaway were these great slabs of stone. In fact, the sidewalls have moved substantially. In the survey, you can see they're not even parallel to the party walls of the building. Other problems are that grills, railings on the fourth floor were simply chopped up when they put in air conditioning. They're non-original windows in configurations that never would have been approved by landmarks. And there are other missing parts, including the gate that goes down to the areaway. This is an extraordinary opportunity for my firm to restore this building. We spent time researching and writing about Warren and Wetmore, the architects of the building, and think it is one of the finest examples of their work, including even the surface of the stone. So to go to the next slide, there are, of course, many things that we're planning to do that we believe will be directed to the staff and where we'll continue to work with the staff of Landmarks. And those are repair, restoration, replacement where we must. The fire damage is an obvious one, and replacing railings that we can demonstrate were there originally. The primary alterations that we're going to show you are the areaway, which will be completely rebuilt as using as much of the original material as possible, but be reconfigured slightly to allow the introduction of a concealed ADA lift, which I'll show you further on, and provide a proper ADA landing at the top. How will this change what we see here? Obviously, everything will be put right and it will look close to what it did originally. It will have a new gate. There are some bronze railings, which I'll show you further on, which have to go on top of the sidewalls. But I think one of the most interesting things from the point of view of the experience of walking by the building is that the first step, which you see on the lower left, will actually be removed, and that will allow 3 foot 8 inches of sidewalk grade to slide into the areaway. So it may not seem like a lot, but that's recapturing some of the sidewalk grade for at the entrance to the building. And you can see there are many other things that are not right. The building never had a flagpole. And again, many of the windows are not original. We will be replacing the front door, which is not original, and work in the areaway. Next slide, please, Tom. An extraordinary thing about this building, which is highly unusual in our work, is that as the tallest building on the block when it was built, and the client must have insisted on this, it has all sorts of interesting and significant architectural features essentially in the donut of the block. Of course, this is all mostly blocked by a large apartment house, 1 East 66th Street. However, it is visible at some angles through an alley. And we intend to thoroughly address and restore all the elements that are so degraded on the back of the building. There are also, along with all of the sort of structural and preservation issues, which we believe most of which will be handled at staff level, there are also elements that are simply missing, and alterations that were made by the occupant, the Yugoslavian embassy mission for years, clearly did not, never applied to landmarks or buildings for any of this. So much of it has been altered in really unfortunate ways. We are proposing some alterations in the back, which I'll show you more further on, including a extension of the rear east bulkhead, introduction of some railings, and rearrangement of some non-visible windows at the top of the east-facing facade. What is not visible in this shot is that the courtyard goes way down to the subcellar. We will be raising the slab in that subcellar, and again, it's not visible, and that will require some alteration. Next. These are, the notes are impossible to read, obviously, at this orientation, but it's worth comparing a few of the significant points. One are the entry doors, which you see on the left are blank, non-original. We are proposing doors that relate to the original design of the building based on motifs that we've witnessed in ironwork in the building. And those are new doors, and that requires approval. You'll also notice that the steps are getting wider, which allows us to have one bay dedicated to ADA access. And you'll also see that there's at the 4th floor, if you could zoom in on that, Tom, there are railings that are missing from those 2 dormer windows. Those were sort of butchered by someone probably in the 50s. We are putting those back. We have enough of what was there to be able to replicate that design in bronze. And it's what they call a guilloche pattern, which is we see in many places in the building. So we're confident that we're putting back something that should have been there. Likewise, the windows are all, most of them have the wrong function and don't follow the original pattern. If you go down to the base of the building, Tom, you can see that we're putting in a new gate to the lower part of the areaway, but that in most respects, the areaway will look exactly as it does now, except it will be restored. Next. Here we are looking at the south elevation, which is partially visible from the alley behind 1 East 66th Street. And we think it's an absolutely fantastic and very eccentric facade. It has all sorts of interesting elements. The Serliano motif at the 2nd floor with that arched window and columns was the music room. The bay below is a pantry, and the very, very narrow arched 3-story motif that just slides up the building. It's actually several panels of windows, and those all light the most dangerous service stair you've ever seen. The treads are between 17 and 18 inches wide. So it's not a good stair, but it's a beautiful window. And as you can see on the left, much of that has been damaged. The alterations that we seek approval for here are raising the slab from the subcellar level to create new space at the subcellar, again, not visible, and modifying the center windows at the first bay to be doors to allow access to that terrace, again, not visible. We're also proposing a fence on top of the parapet wall, which will comply with the restriction, a 6-foot restriction from sidewalk level for rear yard fences. At the top, you see the most significant change, which is an extension of the existing bulkhead. What you're seeing is an architectural cladding of this bulkhead with copper and copper gutters so that it will appear, we believe, as an original copper bay, very much in the spirit of the original architecture. And by the way, the spiral stair, which you see, the cast iron spiral stair, belongs to the Japanese mission, which occupies 4 East 67th Street and actually touches our building. These 2 properties originally were owned, the buildings that preceded these 2 were owned by one family and were actually connected. Next. Here we are looking at the east elevation. The hatched area you see on the left is brick that is severely deteriorated and being pushed out by rust in the structural steel beneath. This is an urgent matter that we have to look after, and this is an example, I won't go through all of them, of the kind of restoration we're planning. So on the left, you see that the Yugoslavian government put essentially like jail bars on many of the windows and tossed a lot of the railings. We're reinstalling railings which replicate the pattern of the guilloche pattern from the original railings on the front. We believe these are appropriate. And then we're also upstairs above that replicating exactly the balusters that were lost. They simply were tossed. There's a little bit of section of the railing left, but that is something we're creating. If you zoom in on that, Tom, I can show what. Let's see, go up. Yeah, there we go. So in cases, in 2 cases in this building, the railings that we put in, which match exactly what was there, do not comply with code. It's simply too low. It's about table height. So we're adding a bronze railing on top of that. And there are many examples on the Upper East Side of stone parapets and stone railings that have this additional element. And you know, essentially we must comply with code, and we think it's better to have the stone part follow the original. And you can even see when you're there that it was broken off from the base of the columns. So next slide. I think these are worth comparing. You can see starting at the areaway that our stairs are now sliding back from the sidewalk by that depth. So the first area is now sidewalk level, where currently it's a step up. And you can also see that we are raising in the middle of the building, which Valerie mentioned. There is a courtyard well below the level of the building, which probably when this building was built, there was no tall apartment house next to it on the south, so it probably was flooded with light. At this point, the light barely reaches the skylight. So we're raising that level, creating a new room. And again, it's below the level of any visibility except for a few neighbors at 1 East 66th Street. And we are speaking to all those neighbors. At the top of the building, at the back, at the east end, you see the extension of the existing bulkhead, and you see how it's clad to appear to be an old copper bay. And then in the middle of the plan, we have extended the existing bulkhead exactly 11'6". It is not going higher, it's just extending further east. Both of these bulkhead extensions are only as large as they need to be to accommodate required fire egress stairs and elevators. So none of our construction at this level is intended to create any additional habitable spaces, nor are we planning to have any occupancy or use of these rooftop areas. And that will be part of both the plan for the use of the building, but also the architecture. And you can also see at the bottom right, you can see the fence, lattice fence we're proposing to put around. And that one role for that on the south will be to obscure the view of the biggest generator you've ever seen, which serves 1 East 66th Street. Next. So these are 2 digital reconstructions of this part of the block. On the left, we're imagining just cleaning and repairing the facade. So this shows the old windows and various other things that aren't correct, including those front doors that are there now. And on the right, you see the new doors. You see the railings up top at the 4th floor windows. You see the new gate that goes to the areaway. And we've created planters inside the areaway opening to get some green and softness there. You also will note that there are 2 railings on the stair now, which complies with code. Next. This is one of my favorite views of the building, even though it's the back and it's a different street. But if you stand across 66th Street, you get on the left a clear view of that wonderful service stair tower and various other, and the oval window was to Mrs. Emily Thorne Vanderbilt White's bathroom. So there's a lot going on back there. On the right, at the top of it, you see our bulkhead extension. This will be done in copper. It will not look green initially, and I think Landmarks understands this. It will be real copper. It will turn green over time. And all the spandrels and windows in this amazing stair tower will be replicated, and every single window replaced in kind. And I know this isn't the most significant view, but it's one of those wonderful treasures of walking down a street in New York and seeing something surprising. Next. This is the areaway and plan. You see the two railings. On top of the sidewalls, we are adding bronze railings, which will allow us to comply with the code. The stair configuration down into the areaway is correct, but it needs to be completely rebuilt. And if you look at the left, you can see how all the pieces of the walls are actually moving. They're visibly out of alignment. So this is in really desperate shape, and it needs our help. Next. This is a diagrammatic representation of the function of the ADA lift. We believe it's the first time this will have been used in New York. At the upper left, you see there's a button that is self-serve, as we call it, for handicapped visitors. They do not have to call an attendant. There's no doorman to come down. We don't need that. And when you press that panel, the steps slide away. They nest under the building, and the lift then emerges in its lower position, and it's clean and it's hidden away, and then it rises up on number 3 to the landing, and then leads to the front door. So this is really this makes us happy because we're not, and I don't know how we could have included a ramp. And it seemed like a very dignified way to arrive because you're arriving essentially in the same steps as everyone else. You do note at the top of the existing parapet wall, there's a guilloche, that perforated pattern in the stone below, and then there's a railing above. It's a bronze railing, and this is, you can see these on the Upper East Side in buildings of this era when a metal railing was used on top of a stone wall. To get to the required height. Next. Oh, by the way, there's a link in the set if you want to see a video of how this stair works. It's fascinating. They've been used in London for some time, and they're apparently very dependable and popular. This is just a detail showing you that for the main entry doors, we're proposing a design that was inspired by what we know of Whitney Warren's taste and other designs, and also picking up some of the motifs that we see in other places in the house. And these will replace the obviously non-original doors, but these are not based on, a pattern that we were able to prove was there. They simply are what we think is appropriate for the building. Next. This is that courtyard that no one will ever see because it's buried so deep in the well. And you're on the right, number 4 shows that we're adding a slab there. And then we have a lattice panel going up, and that will be with planters, and that will be all green. Next. So if you look on the left, you'll see drawing number 1 shows the current position of this lay light, which is buried so deep in the building. And again, we have no south light there now because of the 1 East 66th Street. So we're raising that up, which brings more light in. It makes it useful, and it also allows us to have a lovely room in the middle of the building that we're still designing. Next. These are the mock-up pictures. We have positions 1 through 6. 1 and 2 are in blue, and they're as far as you can get on the 5th Avenue far side to see the building. And you can see that the extension of the bulkheads is not visible from across 5th Avenue. However, if you go between 500 and 600 feet into Central Park, you'll see that there are 2 views where it does become visible. The first one would be number 3. This is about 500 feet away. What you are seeing there, that orange, is the face of the middle bulkhead. It is not higher, it is simply moved forward, making it somewhat more visible than what was there. But we believe it's minimally visible. And number 4 is 550 feet, and we had to tell this couple that we were taking pictures there because it's a very popular spot. It's the highest spot in the middle of the park, I think. So from there, you do see both if you want to zoom in on the 4C, Tom, and then you'll see that you do actually see you see both the extension of the front piece and you see the extension of the back piece right there. Those, and let's switch now to positions 5 and 6. So this is what's visible from 67th Street. On the left is the Japanese Mission number 4, and on the right is 2 East 67th Street. And you can see that the extension of that bulkhead is just visible. You can also see what terrible shape that wall is, and it really is a problem. So that will close off that little rectangle of space right there. And then number 6 is from 66th Street. You've already seen this, and this was depicted in the renderings. And that's the orange is exactly where our copper bay would go. And I think you can keep going, Tom, to the next. And that is it. So here we are. This is the slide I thought we'd end on, showing the before and after. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else from your team going to present anything?
You know, Jennifer was my lifeline because she knows more about the project than I do, but apparently I didn't make any mistakes because she didn't send me any messages. So,
okay.
But Jennifer, if you want to add anything, please do. And I think, do you want to hear about the use? Is there any, Valerie, should anyone else jump in, or is this really about the building?
It's about the building. I think that given that it is a rather unique club from what we've heard, I think as background, just a couple of minutes, but I mean just a couple of minutes, I think would be helpful for everyone to understand what's going to happen.
So Sean, do you want to talk to the use, or is that, Valerie, do you think that's the best, or do you
I think Sean should, he just needs to be unmuted.
Okay.
There you go.
Is that good? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And by the way, before Sean jumps in, I just want to say we're really lucky to have Grafton as our client, because they are restoring listed buildings in places like London, where the requirements are even more stringent, much more stringent than New York. So their dedication to supporting a total restoration is very unusual. Many private clients wouldn't actually step up to this level, so we're lucky.
No, we appreciate that, Peter. And we do like to get involved with complex restoration projects. I mean, one of the projects we are working on is the Ritz in London. So built exactly the same time as this building, funnily enough, but it was it's going through a meticulous refurbishment at the moment. You wanted a very sort of short summary of what the club is. The club is a members club, but it's going to be a small members club. We're looking at about 80 to 100 people in the building at any one time. Plus, in terms of members, we then have some staff in the building. There are 3 guest rooms, as Valerie mentioned earlier. The guest rooms are there to provide and sort of additional accommodation for people that are transiting through the city and part of the members. We are not looking at a music venue or a venue where we're going to have lots of live sort of queues outside and things like that. There's Soho House, there's Zero Bond, there's places you can go where you can get that type of club. It is a quiet place, it is a relaxation place, it's where people can meet like-minded individuals. We're looking at a mix of membership. We don't want it to be sort of a single person or a single sort of industry as such. We want to have sort of technology, business, legal, sort of the greatest minds, but also young talent that are coming through, people that are sort of coming up in their careers and doing exceptionally well. And it's about getting them in front of other people. We don't want doormen hanging around outside or anything like that. We want to be sort of incognito. There's not going to be any signage on the front of the building or identification that this is a club or this is sort of people coming and going. The idea is it is a private venue and it is a private club, so people sort of can go in there and be relaxed, knowing that there's not going to be anyone hanging around outside or anything like that. I mentioned sort of no queues, and we don't want people to be sort of standing outside. There's going to be no red barriers. Doormen will be hidden in the building, so they're not sort of hanging around. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I think I need to say.
I mean, you might, we have to get public assembly permits for any room that has more than 75 people. It's very common in our projects. This building is planned in such a way that we aren't required to get any public assembly permits, because there is not going to be occupancy in any one room of more than probably 40 people.
No, I mean, sort of one of the big things, if we're looking at about 80 to 100 members in there at any one time. I think if you split those people around the building, that's probably about 5 or 6 people per room. It's not a lot of people across the whole space. It's about preserving and restoring the building, and we think a members club would be it is a very good use to be able to sort of sustain the building and look after it. And I think that's sort of key to what we're trying to do, is to sort of re-enlighten the building to what it should be.
I would add that we are, through the special permit process, we will be doing an environmental review, and we have to make certain findings in terms of not having an adverse impact on the conforming residential uses. So we will be going into a lot of detail about this in sort of the second review phase, the special permit phase, which would come later. And at that point, we'd be back in front of the Land Use Committee, which is the committee of the whole at Board 8.
Thank you all for this introduction to what's going to happen. We are going to talk about context and appropriateness, but I know after many years on this committee that people are going to raise the questions that you've just answered. So better to get it up front so everybody has a non-architectural context. Now we can go to architectural context and appropriateness, and we're going to open it up first to the public.
Okay, if you're a member of the public who would like to speak, you can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and select raise hand. All right, first we have Jason. You should see a prompt to confirm unmuting, Jason.
Thank you. It's Jason Bernhardt. I resident of 1866. I'm also on the board and the vice president of the board treasurer. Very familiar with Peter's work. Peter, welcome to the neighborhood. This couldn't be more of a gift for the ugly facade and what we've lived through. My question actually was in some ways answered. I'd just like to hear one more time from Peter. Given we'll have at least 8 units impacted the shared wall, that there will be either soundproofing put in or no need for it given the nature of the club.
So there are 2 parts of that. One, there will be no need for it, but yes, the party walls will be engineered by a top acoustical engineer who will be looking at every single room, both from room to room, but any sound leaving the building. That absolutely is part of our program already.
And follow up to that is, based on what we've heard about the use of the club, it sounds to me suitable, but how do we know that won't change a year or two if economic times require that? I don't know, you open up to more parties, weddings, etc.
I think that's a reasonable question, and I think Valerie can answer to what extent does the use restrictions on the club travel with the building, and Valerie.
Well, there will be, as part of the special permit process, we will have to execute a restrictive declaration, and a lot of the provisions in the declaration have to do with the preservation of the building and the continuing maintenance of the building. But anything that's identified as a potential, environmental issue, there may be measures in the restrictive deck that have to do, that would sort of memorialize any commitments to avoid any impacts as well. And I think the nature of the spaces too is such that, I mean, I don't know, you can't have a 180 person wedding in this space. There are no rooms that would accommodate that.
I mean, to put it in perspective, on the dining room, once you put furniture in there, the maximum people you can get in that room is about 34, and that's squeezing people in. So I don't think there's not a room you can have a big party in. But I do take the point about sort of protecting it for the future, and I think that's something. I mean, there's loads of processes to go through, and I think the liquor license is another one where there's going to be restrictions that can then be put on the use. So I think that will be covered as we go. On your comment about acoustics, just to reiterate what Peter said, we are going to do we've done, and we are working towards the acoustic reports. We're going to make sure that there's no additional spillage of sound out of the building, so you will not be impacted by what's happening. It's not going to be a loud music venue, but there may be some background sort of harp or piano or something that's playing in the background quietly, but it'll be designed in such a way you will not hear that from us.
Thank you. Next. There you go.
Yes, Lo, you're up.
Oh, great. Thank you, Seda. Yeah, my name is Lo Vandervalt. I'm representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. Although this building is not in Carnegie Hill, it's on Fifth Avenue, and we share 12 blocks of Fifth Avenue, and we're for that reason concerned about what happens on Fifth Avenue. And want to commend, of course, Peter Panoyer for this wonderful presentation, and the new owners for taking on this great challenge. I believe this to be one of the last buildings of the Gilded Age, and it's wonderful that it's being restored in the way that it is. My question concerns the build out of the front areaway and stairway into Fifth Avenue. I believe Fifth Avenue is 25 feet wide here, and the build out is about 15 feet, which is roughly 5 feet more than we typically see. So my question to Peter is this grandfathered, and will you be needing a further permission from the Department of Transportation to go into this, to go into Fifth Avenue? And so please elaborate. I'm sure there's a story there.
Yes,
Thank you.
so we've researched the history of the block, and it turns out that it was grandfathered, or it was in existence at this very depth, starting in 1881. The building that preceded this, which burned, had the same depth of areaway as did the neighbors, and so it is certainly grandfathered. Whether the alteration of it to install the ADA lift requires irrevocable consent, we don't think so, but if it does, we will of course follow that process. Valerie may have something to say about that, but it is absolutely grandfathered. It's been there for since 1881.
Right. Certainly all of the structure that's above the sidewalk is grandfathered. What we have to find out is whether any of the mechanism involved with the lift, some of which would be below grade, whether that might trigger a need for revocable consent. But the pedestrian clearance will not be diminished in any way.
It will be increased by 3 feet 8 inches, the width of the entire step array, so that there will be more sidewalk grade going east. And in fact, the entire area under the steps is all is a room. It's not that it needs to be excavated. It's already open. It served as the Yugoslavian diplomats' shooting range for a time.
Thank you, Peter and Valerie.
Thank you, Lo. Next, we have Nuha.
Good evening, Landmarks Committee. My name's Nuha Ansari, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Having had the opportunity to review the plans for 854 Fifth Avenue, and after a very interesting site visit, the Friends Preservation Committee offers its wholehearted support for the application. Considering the current highly deteriorated conditions of the building exterior, including fire damage from a few years ago, we commend the applicants for taking on a project that would breathe new life into this handsome Warren and Wetmore townhouse. We appreciate the detailed proposal that sets out a highly sensitive facade renovation, which would preserve the historic materials and replace them in kind where necessary. We also appreciate the great care that's been taken to survey in detail the building's history and conditions. Friends Preservation Committee also has no objections to the removal of the existing non-original doors at the entrance and their replacement with decorative iron doors and a transom. We believe this represents an improvement, as do the renovations to the areaway, and we applaud the proposed installation of an ADA compliant lift. We also had no objections to the construction of a new bulkhead or a new bulkhead extension on the east elevation, which would be minimally visible from the public way. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other raised hands from members of the public.
So we will go to the committee and we'll start in reverse order.
Okay, Marco?
Thank you, David. I need one clarification. We want to discuss only the presentation was in 2 points. The certificate of approval and the second one, the 7-11 restoration. We're going to discuss only the first one. Is that correct?
No, we have 2 applications that will be heard by the commission. One is for the certificate of appropriateness and the other is for the report pursuant to 74-711. So we would ask that the committee also weigh in on whether this application has an adequate preservation plan, continuing maintenance plan, and, you know, overall sort of a preservation purpose.
I think we've heard in general about the preservation and the maintenance. We don't have specifics, but I assume that if anybody needs more specifics from the committee, they can ask it of you.
Sure. I mean, basically, the way that a 74-711 works is that if you get the approval for city planning, you do not get a certificate of occupancy for this use until the Landmarks Commission has signed off on all of the restoration work, and that it's been done perfectly, that they've inspected it. You also have a deed restriction that is binding on future owners that requires you to do an inspection, have a preservation architect inspect the building every 7 years, submit a report to the Landmarks Commission, and you are required to do any work identified in the reports to maintain the building in sound first-class condition.
So in terms of the approvals, the 74-711 comes first.
We have to, Landmarks has to issue the report about the continuing maintenance plan as part of the city planning application.
Okay, and then once that's done and city planning rules on it, then it goes back for a certificate of appropriateness?
No, they do, Landmarks does
it all together.
They do it all together because they don't want to, they have to consider both the alterations and the preservation plan in conjunction.
Okay.
They're like Siamese twins, David.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think at this moment, I'm not going to comment anything about 74, 711 because you will come back on land use, and the land use I will make my arguments. But I'm going just only for the first one, which is the certificate of appropriateness. I think this application is sensitive and appropriate. The approach, I think, it is a very well qualified professional. He understands very well what he's doing, and starting for the front door, it makes a lot of sense for me. And then we have on the south elevations, I found that he preserved the interesting architectural elements, which is, I think, is beautiful, that section, and create unexpected new contributions in the streetscape. Yes, I applaud that you remove these bars that looks like a jail. That's what you describe, and I think it's good idea. Yes, you repair it and you cleaning, and what I have to applaud, that's my first time that I saw, is the handicap accessible collapse stairs. I think they call collapse stairs. That will be very interesting to see how it works. Very fascinated that part I found. It makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, it looks something awful in that part. I think that's pretty much, that's it. So the only question that I have for the second part is, did I hear correctly? The number of people, it will be between 80 and 800 people?
100. Between 80 and 100.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, it's 400. Okay, finally, the only thing I'm going to mention, because you will come back if something is happening on the airway, which is nice, by the way, but you don't have the grandfather when you change the CO, or you don't grandfather when you change completely the building, like in this case. So you had to bring everything in compliance. That is the regulations. But it will have an opportunity to discard that part. And so far, I think the appropriateness of the application, I think, is beautiful. I like it. Even the extensions is a little bit visible, but it's a little bit unfair if I'm going to judge from 400 or 500 feet far away from the building, which most of the application is just only across the street. So everything I find is very well done, and I applaud this application. Thank you.
Anthony?
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Wonderful presentation as always. I think that there are a number of things that just to a little bit, to a certain extent, echo Marco. I think that the changes to the areaway, I think, are fine. And will certainly improve the appearance of the building if you happen to walk up close to it and look down into the front. I think filling in the existing courtyard is a lovely idea, and raising the level of well, we'll call it the rear yard, is also a very good idea. This is a fine renovation, restoration. It is thoughtful. The ADA access, as you pointed out, Peter, and I did look at the embedded video, is really cool. I can't wait to see it in person. It's everybody should look at it. I think I'm glad that the provisions of 74-711 require this kind of restoration and maintenance plan in perpetuity. It is a shame that on Fifth Avenue we can't already have this kind of use, but that's one of the many faults of the 1961 zoning. However, I am sad that another public building on Fifth Avenue is becoming private forever. This is not a criticism of even a criticism of turning it into a club. It is sad that buildings that were once public or even semi-public are now more and more, increasingly more and more becoming closed to the public. That's not the architect's problem. In a way, it's not the client's, the new owner's problem. It is a sad fact that these wonderful buildings are being closed to us forever. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah.
Hi, I have no further questions. I just wanted to thank the applicant for a beautiful presentation and important work to come on that building that we're all looking forward to. And I wanted to echo Anthony's excitement about the ADA lift. That's really transformative for especially for landmark buildings. And I'm sure that this is not an easy project to do, but it's wonderful to have a first model here at this building. So thank you so much for considering that and for prioritizing the dignity of all people. So thank you.
Sarah, next we have Alita.
Thank you. And thank you for your thorough presentation, for taking on this work, for inviting various groups, including the Landmarks Committee, to view the building. There are exquisite interiors, and I can't echo Anthony more strongly. So my comments are really directed towards the future and probably to you, Valerie. One is that I can't support this without some kind, and I realize that this isn't required, so forgive me, David, without some kind of agreement that there be public access on 1 or 2 days a year for some kind of tour or viewing or something, because it really is a shame when these buildings are closed off. They are public assets, and the community is here. They will, regardless of what they may think now, put up with stuff to have it be a private club. And there should be something for the community in return, other than hopefully a beautiful restoration of the facade. The other thing
Sorry, Alita, to jump in.
Hold off, please. I know what you're going to say, and I'll call on you when I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I wanted to say is definitely for you, Valerie, which is I can't support a 74-711 without some kind of and I don't know if this is even possible. And if it's not, I take back my words, a future deed restriction so that because the 74-711 lasts forever, doesn't it? A change in use. And there should be some kind of restriction so that the interiors are respected and cared for by any future occupant of the building, because I'm sure that this restoration is expensive, that the purchase price was expensive, that ongoing care will be expensive. And if the small type of club that the owner envisions is not financially viable, then and wants to sell or lease the building, that it be respected in some kind of way, again, for the community. And again, because you're getting something out of the public, and it would be nice, I think, as a member of the public, to have something given back. Other than that, as we discussed during the tour, the work is beautiful that you're doing. The building is certainly unusual and has really strong physical attributes that I'm glad that you are preserving. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's take the questions one at a time. Let's start with Sean on your first request.
Alita, no, this has been raised before. We sort of following when a couple of weeks ago when we were in New York, we have raised this with the client. We have discussed the access of the general public into the building once or twice a year. He's happy with the idea, but we can do that. What we need to do I'm not going to be able to come up with a solution off the top of my head now, but it's how we do that. And he's happy to look at the options, and we can work together on how that looks. Potentially we tie up with a university, so there's an historical architectural aspect to that, and students can come through. We want to make it, if people are touring the building, that it's about the building and not about the club. So it's about trying to get the right individuals that are interested in the historic environment and the built environment there, not just anyone. And in a sense, it's going to be people that are going to really benefit from the building. So we are absolutely happy to look at what we do and how we do that. And I think over the next few weeks, we will need to sort of fashion how that's going to look, and we can discuss that and agree that with you guys. So I want to bring you along this journey, and we're happy to do that. We also feel similarly in the sense that we don't want to lock things off for future generations and for people. So it's a nice thing to be able to allow people to view the building once in a while. So we're fine with that.
Thank you, Sean, for saying that. I'd like to see a written commitment to that, if you don't mind, because a lot of times things are approved and then they become an issue. And also to say that I love architecture. I am not an architect. I'm not a student of architecture or of history, but someone like me who has an interest in buildings and would like to see what things were like, and the beautiful painting, for instance, in that front room on the walls. So I would ask that it just not be restricted only to students and scholars, as some buildings tend to be. So thank you very much. And again, I'm really glad to hear you.
Alita, I don't think he said that. I think he said that it could be open to the public.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Students and scholars would be part of it, and maybe that would be part of a focus. But,
Okay.
If I can,
reflecting you incorrectly, my
No,
understanding.
I think what I said is I don't know how it's going to work entirely, because we need to make sure we get the right group of people. It doesn't have to be restricted to any particular group, just that we want to make sure it's people that are interested in the building and not just want a tour of a club.
I agree with you on that. And again, thank you for anticipating, and thank you for saying that. It really matters.
Anyway, we should all thank the AIA for October.
Yes.
That might be a good time for one of the 2 times per year. Valerie, the second aspect of the interiors.
well, I think there are sort of 2 things. One is Landmarks does not have any jurisdiction over the use. They also don't have any jurisdiction over the interior. But once we get to the second part of the review process at city planning, I think that is the forum really to discuss the use, public access, and how the interiors could be protected and the mechanism for doing so. And those kinds of issues are can be addressed in the restrictive declaration, which is binding on future owners. But I would say, and this is not your only crack at this application. In the land use portion of the review, I think that is sort of a better time and a more appropriate forum, given the review, for sort of nailing down the specifics of all of these issues.
I understand that. I wanted to raise it so that if it were an appealing topic, it would be something that you could think about and perhaps have a plan when you came back to the community board.
Well, we're going to be back. Oh, and yes, and during the next, not by Wednesday.
No, I understand that. I get back when you're coming to
land. Valerie, I think the points are well made already. They don't have to be repeated.
Great.
Can we continue, please?
Sure. David Abraham has his hand raised. I'm not sure.
We've been through the committee except for Jane and myself.
No, not yet.
Well, Abraham, if the issue is you want to speak about this, we go to everybody who's a member of the board. So unless this is a point of information, we will get to you.
Okay. Next we have Michelle.
Yes, thank you very much. Beautiful presentation, a beautiful building. Quick question. Will your dining area require any ventilation? How many days a week will it be used? You're calling it a dining area. Will it function as a restaurant? Is there any kind of ventilation or anything that'll affect the exterior of the building, either in the back, the front, or anywhere else?
There is currently a large vent pipe, the duct that comes out of the roof of the building. And when they built 1E66, it was attached, it springs over and attaches to a balcony at that building, believe it or not, and that goes 10 stories up. So we will actually be removing that. It's just a monstrosity. And instead, the ventilation system will have equipment that's mounted low on the roof that will purify the air before it's released. So yes, there is a ventilation system, but it will be a state-of-the-art in terms of functionality and acoustics that is not what you get at typical restaurants. And I mean, Sean can speak to this, but this isn't a restaurant in the sense that people can come and it's a limited
Members,
use.
it's a members restaurant. It is a restaurant. It will run similarly to a restaurant, but it's a members restaurant, and they can bring guests to the restaurant. We're looking at potentially 2 or 3 guests maximum, but the maximum people in the building will always stay 80 to 100 at any one time. The restaurant, in terms of air, so technically, we will have to provide air into the space. We'll have to take air out of the space. We'll have to cool air and heat air to be able to in any of the rooms. It's not just the restaurant. So there will be new ventilation systems. There will be new heating systems installed in the building. They will all be sensitively done. I think there were some images earlier on the one of the models that Peter showed that showed the condenser units, which are part of the cooling system on the roof of the building. So we're not getting lots of air handling systems out there. It's water cooled, so it limits the amount of plants on the roof and the amount of mechanicals that are on the roof. And there will also be, just to add into that, acoustically sealed and operated and made sure that there's no additional noise from that machinery. If that's, I think, where maybe you were going with the question, I'm not 100% sure, but
No,
sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
No, I was just going to say we will be, when we have to, the systems are so old, we have to upgrade all of the systems in the property.
Yeah, well, that's what I was anticipating, but I noticed there was no discussion of mechanicals. So I wonder if you have a view of your ventilation plus your mechanicals that would accommodate heat and air, and if you have dimensions of those, just so that we can verify that they're not disturbing the windows of the adjoining buildings and that your neighbors have no objection to them, that they've been approached. So I'll wait for that answer for 1 minute and just go to the interior, which would be wonderful if they could be presented to become landmarked. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but perhaps the interior of this building does qualify, because as of now, there's nothing to really, unless it's going to be in a declaration later on, there's really nothing to prevent an owner of breaking down walls, combining rooms on the interior, which could then affect the number of people in one space, in one room that you can have at one time, and that in turn could affect the use. So I know there's no restriction on that now, I'm sure, but if there could be an application for interior landmarking, that might be helpful. Is that something you've considered or will think about, or any comment on that?
Landmarks only designates interiors that are customarily accessible to the public. That's a statutory requirement. So you had the former Four Seasons restaurant, you have theaters. They have not, to my knowledge, designated interiors of private clubs. They could not designate the interior of a residence. So I don't think these interiors would qualify for interior designation, but there may be other methods of ensuring their preservation, which is
Okay.
the intent of this team is to preserve the significant rooms.
Well, from the standpoint of quality of life issues and your intended use, somehow restricting what can be done in the interior would affect that. Because if rooms were combined, if each room doesn't accommodate more than however many people now, if they were combined, that could change. And that could be an issue going forward as to the use of this building. So if it can't be landmarked, if that can be included in a declaration or I don't know what the terminology is, but some way to protect it, which would both protect the building, which those that are interested in preservation, that would be a good enough reason. But in addition, it would curtail the abuse of a use, I should say, going forward. So I would be interested in hearing about that. This maybe is not the forum, maybe it would be at our land use committee when you talk about the 74-711, whatever you think, but I personally would like to hear more about it. And now just to go back to my first question, do you have any images or any dimensions or any descriptions for us in terms of the mechanicals and the vent and all that?
Could I ask my partner Jennifer to?
Yes, Tom, could you pull up the 3D? Yes. So as Peter mentioned, the drawing on the right-hand side is a 3D of the proposed area. And if you zoom in a bit, Tom, you can see on the lower bulkhead, those are mechanical units serving as the cooling. The longer unit towards the bottom of the page, that is the piece of equipment that will scrub the exhaust and odors and grease and all the atmosphere that comes from a kitchen. And the rectangle that you see at the bottom on the left-hand side, that's the top of the elevator bulkhead. And just below that is another piece of cooling equipment for some of the larger spaces. But that's predominantly it. And it's all very tucked away inside the bulkhead with parapet walls that hide it from view.
So can you tell us about the dimensions of the taller units, of which there appear to be 6?
Yes.
Those.
I'd have to, Tom, do you mind just taking a look at that spec? I believe they're about 5 to 5.5 feet tall, and they would need to sit on top of steel dunnage so that they're adequately lifted off the roof.
Okay. It doesn't appear that the walls block their view, but that may just be the angle that I'm looking at.
I believe it's the angle,
yeah,
especially
those
from
walls,
the street.
Yeah, okay, so those walls actually do. Now you have doors just behind that. Is that true? Are those doors?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is a door that does exit from that bulkhead onto that roof. And we need to provide, you also see ladders, that we need to provide a 6-foot wide fire department access across the entire length of the roof from the front of the building to the back.
So that's what that is.
Correct.
Okay, is that one of your residents' apartments?
No, that's a staircase.
That's the stair, and
that's the staircase. Okay.
correct.
And the lower one is the elevator. Okay. Thanks very much. I've just, yeah, those are my comments. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next is Gail.
Thank you so much for such a thoughtful and really impressive presentation. I also want to compliment you for your research and your commitment to replicating the original design elements wherever possible. Like the rest of my colleagues, I'm absolutely intrigued by the retractable stairs. I'm curious though, since there's not going to be a doorman, when somebody rolls up in a wheelchair, are there buttons, or how will they be able to create the retraction?
So the button is it's a large panel. It's easy to punch because it's not like a little button, but it's a panel. it has the correct symbol on it, and it's sort of universally located where one would expect to see it. I learned a little bit about this when my father was, you know, in a chair going around, and they're always sort of in the same height from the ground, and it will be very obvious, you know, how to do that. And as I said, unlike the ones in many museums and public places, you don't have to wait for someone to come over and, you know, unlock something. And also you know, it's great to have something that's hidden away because they get so ugly and dirty when they're left out in the weather.
Right.
Can
And
I just clarify, Gail, as well?
Sure,
Just
of course.
for absolute clarity, there will be no doorman hanging around outside, but we'll still have someone on the inside of the building. So if someone turns up that needs assistance with something, someone will be able to help them, which is a courtesy and something you'd expect on any building, really, but where people are going in. So,
of course, and the material, I assume, will it be concrete or?
No,
stone.
stone.
What
The
was
same.
this? It's the same stone, this limestone.
Same stone.
Okay, and I guess I had the only other question. You say that the system is in place, working successfully in the UK and elsewhere. What about the maintenance? Have there been any issues? Do they tend to be very reliable, or are there challenges?
Everything we've heard is that it's a very robust system, and there have not been problems. The video is worth watching. There's a link in the package.
Do that. Well, thank you very much. And also thank you for the detail, having had your tour, that you planned for the interior as well, because it's really spectacular. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Elizabeth.
Yes, I will echo every compliment that my colleagues have made. This is a splendid, thoughtful, intelligent restoration and alterations. And obviously, we're all going to vote for it, and I will be among them. And the scholarship and approach that you've taken to this building, when we come to the 74-711, I think gives us confidence that you're going to maintain it. If you're going to do all this, you're going to keep on maintaining it. So I think I'm very comfortable supporting that. So thank you very much. And I will support both sides, both parts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now,
thank you.
We go to the members of the board who are not on the committee. Before we have the public members and then the members of the board who are not on the committee. And then Jane and then it's true.
Great, thank you, David. Yeah, no, I also want to echo, I think the presentation was very thoughtful. I'm excited about this restoration. I think it'd be beautiful to kind of see it in this glorious form. I also echo Alita's comments on working to have accessibility for the public into the building. And then with regards to the accessibility lift, I think it's fascinating. I'll be curious to see how it operates. But I'd be remiss if I didn't use this as a teachable moment. The word handicap was used, and when talking about matters of accessibility, that's not a term that's used any longer. So just wanted to
point taken. Thank you.
Offer that. So, but otherwise, I will be supportive of this restoration. So thank you very much.
Thank you. John?
Well, I've long had a strong interest in the history of the city of New York. So I particularly appreciated the tour you gave us a week or so ago. And this afternoon, I read your book also, and it just makes me more grateful that you're working so hard to preserve the history of the city. And I would certainly vote in favor of it.
Thank you.
Jane?
Thank you, Saeed. I have somewhat of a cold. I think this is one of those moments when I, for one, am just thrilled to be on the Landmarks Committee. We see so many presentations month after month, but I've never seen a presentation that rose to this level of excellence. So I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to the architect and to all the others that are involved with this project. I think the one thing that I want to bring out is that I've had in front of me on my computer slide number 10, which shows the magnificent and exuberant rear elevations, the south facing, and I believe it's the east facing elevations, especially the loggia. And I urge all of you to go back and look at that slide, because that's when you see the grandeur of a Warren and Wetmore project. Thank you.
David?
All I can do is echo what everyone else has said. It's a magnificent building. I think it's been a magnificent presentation. We wish you well with it. And I think it's time for a member of the committee to make a resolution. It's such a beautiful building. I think we get a quick, beautiful resolution.
Okay, Alita?
Thank you. I'd like to move that we support a resolution in favor of the application as presented.
Thank you.
Seconded by Abraham.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let's go to the committee for the vote.
I think we
Elizabeth?
can stop the screen share. Could we stop the screen share?
Yeah, we don't need that any longer.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Surprise, surprise, I'm voting yes.
Gail?
An enthusiastic yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, I thought I was muted. Yes, and has nothing to do with anything David said. Just a joke. Sorry. Thank you.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
John?
I
John?
need to be unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Oh, well, yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Unanimous approval.
Thank you.
And thank you, Peter and
Thank you
Valerie
very much.
Thank you.
and the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I don't
back to
know
you.
whether- Does anybody want to bring up any new business? No? Okay. Oh, I see, Michelle.
I had Alita first, so I'm go
Oh,
ahead,
so-
Alita.
go ahead, Alita.
It's very fast, but I saw the Petit Prince sculpture next to the French building, and it is adorable. It's really, really charming and enchanting, much more so than the images that they presented when they asked for our approval. I just wanted to tell everyone it's on 78th Street. If you're by there, just stop by. It'll bring a smile to your face, which we all really need. Thank you, Jane.
Michelle?
Yeah, you've all been hearing a lot about the city of yes. And of course, a tremendous portion of the city of yes is housing and streetscapes. And most of the city of yes represents a complete rezoning of the whole city of New York. It's a very detailed presentation. City Planning and Dan Garodnick have sent the full version to the community board, which I'm trying to plow through. It's over 400 pages. I encourage us all to do that. But the reason I'm raising it with this committee is because in their deliberations, while they have made no proposals about historic districts or violating them or invading them in any way, you should note that there is a paper on preservation that is part of their research. And I'll find that and send it to the committee. They can disperse it as they like. But I'm raising the issue because I'm wondering if at any point this committee wants to look at this and either make a statement or consider, or just look at it in terms of its zoning, it could be with the zoning committee, but they're going to look at it anyway. But in terms of preservation. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's for the co-chairs to make that decision, but this is coming down the pike fairly rapidly. And so I would like us to get ahead of it if we feel there's something to get ahead of. So I encourage you to read what the office disseminated through city planning, which is the whole city of Yes, but pay particular attention to what they're doing about the zoning, housing, and preservation. And I'll look for that and try to send it along, just the smaller preservation paper that they're examining. They haven't made any, there's no decision relevant to that paper, but they are looking at it. So I think we should know that they're looking at it and we should be familiar with it. Thank you.
Did you want to say something more, Alita?
Thank you. I just want to say that this has been an issue I've heard for years. I think I've mentioned it to you guys that historic districts are on the radar for people who are interested in changing things. And I do agree with Michelle that we need, or should, if it's appropriate, have a voice and say something sooner rather than later, because as bad as all of the additions make the historic districts, I believe it's going to be a whole lot worse when they're 40-story buildings. Thank you. Thank
you, Alita. I just noticed in Will Brightbill's mailing, I'm sorry, I have this cold, that Saida is leaving our office, the community board office, next month. And I feel a great sadness in my soul about this, because Saida has been really the best person from the office serving our committee since I've been on the board. And you guys know that I've been on the board for way, way too long and involved with landmarks for way, way too long. So I'm just trying to think of how we as a landmark committee could recognize Saida's service to all of us. You know, I luckily have met Saida before the pandemic arrived and we went on Zoom. And I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity at a party at Vanessa Aronson's apartment. She's no longer even on the community board. That I just wanted to bring that up and make sure everybody was aware of it. And that maybe next month we can figure out a resolution to pass in her honor that gets written into the record somehow.
Thank you, Jane. I did not know that. And I don't know how many others knew that. So thank you for bringing that up. It is sad to note, but I trust that she's going on to advance herself, which is only to be applauded.
And I want to thank you, David, for taking 834. I really have to say, I looked at all 84 slides earlier this afternoon, and it's just mesmerizing to me that we got an application of this at this level. I've never seen this before. It's almost as if the drawings should be put into some kind of a booklet in addition to the booklet that was distributed to all of us who were lucky enough to go on the in-person tour. I know Elizabeth could not be there. Elizabeth, I'll try to see if I can get you a copy of the little booklet.
Well, I think the reality, Jane, is that we got a pre-construction booklet. I'm sure we're going to get a post-construction booklet because that is the way Peter Penoyer and his office works.
Well, I hope you're absolutely right. But in the meantime, I want to get Elizabeth what all the rest of us received on that tour.
Well, I think.
But the tour certainly did not give justice to all these incredible drawings, especially of those two elevations, the one that faces east and the one that faces south. They are so exuberant. And I actually ordered the Peter Penoyer Ann Walker book on Warren and Wetmore buildings all over the East Coast. The country houses, the hotels, the country clubs, Grand Central Station, the New York Yacht Club. You know, we are so privileged to be a part of all of this. I hope all of you recognize that. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. I'm going to try to rest my throat. And thank you again, David.
Well, thank you, Jane. And thank you for your commentary on Warren and Wetmore. Well deserved on their behalf. And again, thank you, Jane, because I haven't been on landmarks as long as you have, but you have been my inspiration for landmarks because I think you very often don't give yourself sufficient credit for the quality of work that you do, not only in running the meetings, but in the proposals that the resolutions that you write. So,
Well, I try to make them
what
more.
gave me an
educated.
opportunity to say it, so I just want to say
Okay, well,
thank you.
thank you. I'm not going to blush, or you can't see me blush on the screen, but with that, does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Michelle, is there a second? Well, we'll see you all on Wednesday night if I make it to Roosevelt Island, which I guess I will. If anybody wants to take the tram with me, let me know.